Hello, everyone, and good morning from California. Good afternoon to those of you following us in the East Coast of the United States and other parts of the world. On behalf of the Portuguese Beyond Borders Institute, that's PBBI from California State University, Fresno, welcome to each and every one of you. We are here to commemorate the 25 de Abril, the 25th of April of 1974, when Portugal had a revolution called the Carnation Revolution that forever changed the country and really brought the country in 1974 to, even though we were in the last 26 years of the 20th century, it brought the country into the 20th century because for 50 years, Portugal had been a dictatorship, brutal dictatorship, and with very, very little economic opportunities, obviously many, many different dilemmas that we will talk about. This is a program that we had announced, our second event for PBBI, the Portuguese Beyond Borders Institute from California State University, Fresno, as a way to bring forth some awareness of some of the programs and some of the different events that we at PBBI will be putting forth throughout this entire year of 2024 as Portugal commemorates the 50th anniversary. Let me share with you this presentation, and hopefully all of you can see it as I can as well, and we'll be able to go through it and talk to you a little bit about the 50th anniversary of the Carnation Revolution and what we are putting forth, of course, here at California State University, Fresno through PBBI. That's the Portuguese Beyond Borders Institute. We will also have the financial assistance of FLAD, Luso-American Development Foundation, FLAD from Lisbon, Portugal, which is our one of our major sponsors, the major sponsor of PBBI at Fresno State, including obviously lots of community donors, including many, over 160 community donors that we have every year through the crowdfunding events, and some community donors throughout the year as well for some of the various programs that we explained to you yesterday. If you didn't see our presentation live yesterday, please do so by going to our YouTube channel. It will be there this evening. And of course, we're going to be doing this in collaboration with hopefully many organizations, one of them, the California-Portuguese-American Coalition. So how did this all begin? The process of putting forth this year-long event, it began basically last September as through the Luso-American Education Foundation, the conference, the 47th annual conference, and as of you said, as all of you that followed us yesterday heard, that the conference had this theme, 50 years of democracy in Portugal. How do we celebrate was obviously the last session of the conference, because the theme overall was Cravos em Setembro, Carnations in September, freedoms, legacies, identities, cultures, and opportunities. It was a way to reflect on the Portuguese-American experience in California through the eyes of 25 de Abril and the Carnation Revolution. So we began this process with that 3.5-day conference that was the 47th annual conference of the Luso-American Education Foundation. And we had participation from folks throughout the state of California, throughout also other parts of the United States. We had participation from Portugal and also some other Portuguese-speaking countries as well. Let us talk just a little bit and very briefly as we look at this golden jubilee of the Carnation Revolution. And what are some of the shared values which are part of the legacies of the April 25th revolution? Obviously, freedom, liberdade, no repression, no dictatorship, open discussion of ideas. That was one of the main reasons why the April captains put forth the revolution to bring Portugal out of a 50-year dictatorship. Peace. Or paz in Portuguese. No to war, including the war amongst ourselves that sometimes we unfortunately have even within the Portuguese-American experience, but no to war, especially into ending the wars that were being fought in Africa and Portuguese colonies still at the time, and mainly in Angola, in now at that time Portuguese Guinea, now Guinea-Bissau, and Mozambique. All three of them, of course, independent countries. No to colonialism. So, as many of you know, through as especially those of you who are students of history, after World War II, the United States really put a finger down on many European powers to end their colonial rule in different parts of the world, including in Africa and other continents as well. And that happened quite a bit, especially with Great Britain, especially with other European powers. Portugal did not. Portugal continued with its colonialism in Africa and in Asia. And so Portugal, for many reasons, was an ally of the United States. The United States administration at the time looked the other direction and did not put a finger down on Portugal. And so Portugal continued with its colonial powers until basically until the revolution of 1974. And then these countries became independent in 75 and 76. But meanwhile, especially at the end of the 1950s, began and early 1960s, there were uprisings in these different colonies that wanted to become independent country. So the legacies or the shared values of April are no to war, no to colonialism, and to cultivate peace within the country, within the different forms of opinion, within obviously all of Portugal, and to cultivate peace even with, of course, the new independent countries that had been part of the Portuguese nation through colonialism for so many centuries. And justice, cultural for all, and certainly I'm a firm believer that the internet and even social media, we can look at all the bad stuff of social media, and there's plenty of it out there for anyone to look at. But through social media, through the internet, we can also have access to culture that years ago was only afforded by a few people at the top of the economic scale. Today, the middle class. Today, even the various levels, as we know, of the middle class can, especially through technology, we can attend concerts, we can read books, we can listen to poetry, we can listen to debates and discussions and ideas. So technology has really changed and has democratized some aspects of culture, but the idea was cultural justice. So that culture in Portugal was not just to those elites that had been part of that system for so long in Portugal, especially during the 50 years of the dictatorship. Prior to the dictatorship, also the First Republic had lots of issues. And then prior to that, we had a monarchy that was in Portugal from its inception in the 1130s all the way until 1910. And obviously, the three different classes at the time were the nobility, the clergy, and then the so-called people. And so many times during the monarchy, the process was that the people had could not get in contact with very little culture. So the culture was reserved for the aristocrats and the clergy. And then, of course, social justice. Portugal had during the dictatorship a handful or two hands full of cultural and also rich folks. A very, very high end economic power that was held by a few dozen families. And then there were maybe a few other 100 families in that concept that were right around along that top end. But there were lots of poor people in Portugal at the time. There was not a very large middle class, almost non-existent. And so that's why people immigrated, and especially in the 1950s, 60s, and 70s, as we know. And so social justice and, of course, freedom with justice and with rights and responsibilities. And that includes, of course, the right to vote, the right to say your opinion, freedom of expression, freedom of religion, a separation of church and state, all of these things that to us in America had been part of the United States for many, many years, but it began in Portugal with the Revolution of 1974, April 25th. And so, why the idea of the carnation? And that is actually going to be our theme at Fresno State, Carnations of Freedom. Why the carnation? And so basically, the Carnation Revolution began. There is, of course, many different stories of it, and but the idea was to show to folks that the soldiers were on the streets of Lisbon to bring a change and not a military dictatorship. So, how do we take these values? How do we take this last romantic revolution of the 20th century and even now in the 21st century? Really is the last romantic revolution of the last 50 years. How do we take this and how do we celebrate this here in California? Not coming up with a bunch of events that we're going to be doing on a one-time basis and then goodbye, they're no longer in existence. But how do we take these shared values and incorporate them into what we already are doing in California? The many things that we do, the many different festas and events and dinners and different events that we have, literally thousands of them. If we look at all the different organizations that we have, many organizations have 6, 7, 8, 10 different events per year, some even more. And so if you take all of these events that we are doing with all of organizations, whether they be cultural, whether they be social, whether they be religious organizations, whether they be the festas or the matança or the or carnaval or any of these other different or things that we do on an ongoing basis, these traditions, how do we incorporate the symbols and the 25 de Abril shared values throughout 2024? So, as we all know, the carnation is the symbol. So, there's just a few ideas there. For example, especially throughout the valley, the Central Valley, many of our organizations during the Holy Ghost festas have, and the other festas of Fatima, the festas of Our Lady of the Assumption, Our Lady of the Rosary, many other festas have what is known as Bodos de Leite, the parades that we know that are usually held on Saturday mornings. Why not give it the theme of the Carnation Revolution? Many times the theme of these Bodos de Leite have to do with with traditions in Portugal, and they're very well done. And why not have it? So I would suggest that our organizations throughout all of California that still carry on this tradition of the Bodos de Leite have the theme of the Carnation Revolution. There is lots to pull from, obviously. A moment in honor of freedom and at the religious and cultural aspects of our festas. Many of our festas start with the raising of the flag and the national anthems. Why not play also the song that led the soldiers to liberty, the Grândola Vila Morena? Why not have, obviously, also the Portuguese bands throughout the state of California dedicate a concert to the 25 de Abril and the wonderful music that was created around the 25 de Abril, the one that was prohibited before and then that came to light, and the one that was cultivated within the very first years of democracy in Portugal as well. Fado nights are something that are becoming more and more popular because of the quality that we have of fadistas in California. We have young men and women with lots of talent in fado. And why not have these musical nights, these fado nights include one or two or three fados that are around these shared values of April. And as I said, when we play the national anthems, why not dedicate also a moment or two? The song is about 3.5 minutes for Grândola Vila Morena, which is the song that is still associated, of course, with the revolution. And we'll be actually having events at Fresno State, many of them online, like this one, that will explain on an ongoing basis the reasons behind Grândola Vila Morena, the reasons behind the Carnations in the Carnation Revolution, and many other aspects of that as well. How can we continue to also celebrate? So we at PBBI at Fresno State suggest things like each heritage event can be tailored around the 25 de Abril. Sports events can have, as I mentioned again, the Grândola Vila Morena and have a clip. There are thousands and thousands of clips about the revolution that one can put at these sports events that are these sports nights, these heritage nights that are held at the different basketball, baseball, and football games. You can have certainly a clip of about a minute or a minute and a half that everybody can watch on those giant big screens about the revolution. Heritage events can have posters, and we can also have temporary exhibits of the revolution. Portuguese soccer tournaments can have a moment in their opening sessions to commemorate the revolution. Have each one of the soccer players have a carnation with them and play the Grândola Vila Morena. Simple moments that will dignify and will bring forward the pride that all Americans of Portuguese background and all Americans in general who we are in the birthplace of the modern democracy, the modern day democracy. And so we should all be elated that Portugal is still commemorating the values of democracy 50 years later. And heritage events can adapt the entire year by having this symbol. Besides having whatever sport event it is, or whatever cultural event it is, or whatever social event it is, we can very easily incorporate the beauty of the red carnation and what it symbolizes, carnations of freedom. So, at an educational level, we at PBBI are in favor of developing a unit around the 25 de Abril and the shared values of the revolution. We're in favor of having parents during the school year with students, having students present a program, especially at the secondary level and the elementary level. Our private schools at our community halls can have a day where the students do from a very simple representation to a song that they can do on playback to many different events. But they can certainly create an event and invite the parents and the grandparents to attend an event around the 25 de Abril. And also having students in schools with Portuguese language classes present group presentations that they can go to other classes, especially the social science classes, where history is being studied on an ongoing basis, a history of Europe class. Have the Portuguese language students from that high school go and do a presentation at the history classes, even at the English classes, even at the BE classes. Why not? If you can have a whole school rally, but some schools, and I'm thinking of the one where I taught for 22 years, Tulare Union High School, the Portuguese is very respected and continues to be. And so the Portuguese is taught at all three of the Tulare High Schools. So a rally or an assembly can be developed around the 25 de Abril that actually involves the entire school. And obviously easier done at some schools than others, but it can all be done if we put our minds and our hearts and some labor into it as well. Have a 25 de Abril celebration during the month of April, especially. But I would entice and would challenge and ask and plead to the Portuguese language teachers at the high school level and at the elementary level through our private schools to have year-long events, to have an event this semester, for example, that is beginning now and will end at the end of May, to have events in February, in March, in April, and in May, one per month in your school setting that can be around the 25 de Abril. And then in the fall semester that starts usually in late August or in some schools in September. So in September, October, November, during those 3 months, continue with the theme and now taking it to a different level, which is the level of the repercussions of it. So we can look at the first semester to commemorate 25 de Abril and what it led and what led to 25 de Abril and what happened around the 25 de Abril. But certainly in September, October, and November, right before the holidays, we can use those months to look at those shared values and how it has affected what is known today as modern day Portugal. And Portuguese halls and community organizations can certainly publish a pamphlet and have a liaison that can go to schools, any school, not just schools that have Portuguese programs, but any school, a Portuguese club member, a Portuguese IDS member, a member of the Portuguese fraternal societies, Luso or PFSA can go to their local school where their kids are and with a pamphlet do a short 10 to 15-minute presentation with a video, with some music. And then, of course, after that, there will be all kinds of questions. So it's a great way to have a 30 to 40-minute presentation at elementary level, at secondary level, that I believe, because knowing how school system works, that I believe most school districts would welcome, because it is part of who we are in America as we cultivate democracy, and here in the United States as well. So the 25 de Abril, again, how do we commemorate it in California? Our fraternal organizations, whether it be Luso Financial or Luso Fraternal or PFSA, have tremendous power, and they are truly our statewide organizations. I would ask them and continue to plead what we did in September, which is to dedicate a portion of their conventions to the 25 de Abril and the values, the shared values of April, to have a lecture or a presentation on these shared values of April and on the historical aspect of 25 de Abril, to have display with posters and artifacts and the transition of democracy in Portugal, to create a call for projects to fund educational projects around the 25 de Abril. So some of these projects, like the pamphlets and some of the things, will need some funding. Obviously, it will need some funding. And I believe that our fraternal organizations could fund that. We're not talking about thousands and thousands or hundreds of thousands or even tens of thousands, but a pamphlet well done that's adapted to our reality in California, with a graphic artist and everything, may cost, with printing and everything, may cost $3,000 or $4,000. But that is something, of course, that I believe our fraternal organizations, our cultural organizations, our local organizations can certainly partner up and do that. And of course, have segments on the history of the revolution in your bulletins and your newsletters. Lots of different organizations have bulletins and newsletters. Why not create the theme of the 25 de Abril? If you have a newsletter that goes out 3 times a year, it would be, I think, advantageous to all of us and to our history, because lots of what's going on in Portugal today and what has been going on in Portugal in the last few years is a result, some good and some bad, obviously, but it's all a result of the 25 de Abril revolution. And so Portugal and the autonomous regions of the Azores and Madeira, and I mean the governments, the state of Portugal and the autonomous regions, also have a responsibility in this. And so the community in the diaspora can, if it so chooses, take this opportunity to bring forth politely, yes, but forcefully, some of the issues that we have faced and have never been resolved in the Portuguese American community. Everything from diplomatic services to cultural organizations that receive every year a check, and others who apply and never receive anything. So these things should be talked about. These are some of the shared values of the justices of Abril that we can bring up politely, yes, but forcefully. Remind the national government in Portugal that colonialism has ended, and that the future of the diaspora depends on the diaspora and not on Portugal interjecting its authoritarian past into diaspora affairs. So we cannot, in the diaspora, be the new colonized folks, okay? And I think that we need to have a bit of a conversation around that, again, politely, but forceful. And call upon the government officials to give our diaspora the resources it deserves in order to carry out a dignified celebration of the 25 de Abril that fits who we are as a diaspora, in this case in the Western United States, and in this case in particular in California, without intervention. But also, Portugal does have funding for this. It should also be used in the diaspora as well. And so, to our Portuguese American elected officials, and we in California, at local levels, everything from school boards to Congress, we are lucky. We have over 140. build through the California Portuguese American Coalition a task force to reach out to the counties throughout the state of California. We have 58 counties, and to have resolutions commemorating Portugal's 50th anniversary of transitioning into freedom. A few counties, I believe a handful of them, 6 or 7 of them, did the month Portuguese Heritage Month in June. I think we need to call out these counties. I think we need to call into them, and I think we need to build a coalition, and we need to increase this. It would be wonderful in all 58 counties, maybe utopian, but I think we can have 20 or 25 in California that can do a resolution to congratulate Portugal and the Portuguese Americans for 50 years of democracy. Usually it's not controversial at all. Democracy and freedom are not controversial in the United States of America. We treasure what we have here, and all of us who are of Portuguese ancestry should have a vocal part in this. And it's not controversial, and I think counties would actually welcome this opportunity to join the golden jubilee of Portugal's transition into democracy. And so create a task force to call upon our Portuguese American congressmen. We have 4 congressmen, men in this case, in the U.S. From California. We have 1 congresswoman from the East Coast, so 5 who are of Portuguese background in the U.S. Congress, and have a similar resolution done in sometime this spring, hopefully in April, put forth to commemorate, to have the U.S. Congress, and all of these resolutions are usually transmitted or broadcast through a couple of different organizations, nonprofit television services, and so we, as a community, could have an effort to have the moment that this resolution is introduced in the U.S. House of Representatives, just basically flood social media outlets and flood and have them in all of our local media, and have reports, whether it be in person at that particular time or printed later on through our press. But I believe that this is an opportunity to bring forth the freedom that Portugal has enjoyed, and that has had its repercussions in our diaspora as well, and have online forums with elected officials of Portuguese ancestry to discuss our political climate and compare and contrast with the shared values of the revolution. That is something that the California Portuguese American Coalition will be doing. We're looking at doing at least 6 different forums throughout the year, one every about 6 weeks or so, with a bit of a break during the summertime, with Portuguese Americans that are elected throughout the state of California, having 2 or 3 guests at a time to talk about their role in their state, in their county, and their Board of Education, and then to talk a little bit about the shared values of April and how they compare to our system here in the United States of America. So at PBBI, Portuguese Beyond Borders Institute at California State University, Fresno, it's easy to put a lot of ideas forth, so put your money where your mouth is, as it is widely said. But we have committed to a year-long of events online. And why online? Because Americans of Portuguese ancestry live in 501 cities, according to the U.S. Census, just in California. Some cities only have 25 or 30, but they also have the right to have this opportunity. So online, we can reach folks not only in California, but folks who follow us in Hawaii, folks who follow us in Washington and Oregon, in other Western states as well, and even throughout the world. But we will be having events. Yesterday, I shared the very, very ambitious program that we have. And so we will, most of the program, not all of it, but about 65% of what we'll be doing throughout the entire semester, this semester, will be focused on the 25 de Abril, and about 50% of what we are going to be doing in the fall semester will continue to talk about the 25 de Abril. The events will also focus on our community, from our accomplishments to challenges, from politics to education, from the Portuguese LGBTQI community to the older generation, from the right to learn Portuguese language to issues facing today's Portugal. And how are we going to do this? With online, as I said, debates and presentations and different sessions, with articles in both of our platforms, Novidades and Filamentos, that is also a way to accomplish this goal. A Portuguese language student day at the high school, from high school, I should say, at Fresno State. It is already scheduled. The three Tulare schools have all agreed, and so has the Portuguese Club at Sierra Pacific to attend. We're hoping to hear back from our friends in Hilmar, in Turlock, and Sears. And we will have that Portuguese Language Youth Day on April 11th at California State University, Fresno. And we are going to have, as our invited guests, Commander Jorge Betancourt coming from Portugal. He will be at Fresno State and the Central Valley on the 11th, 12th, 13th, 14th, and 15th. And then he will be up at University of California, Berkeley on the 16th, 17th, and 18th. So publications, print and digital, of translations into English of works related to the Carnation Revolution. I talked a little bit about that yesterday. We have already began our first one. It'll be every single Friday through Filamentos, our arts and letters in the diaspora. We'll have a presentation of an article, a poem, a memoir, that has been done in Portuguese, translated to English every single Friday. It's our goal. Don't kill us if there's happens that one Friday we cannot do it, but we are hoping to have throughout the year, 52 weeks in a year. We're hoping, other than maybe a few the summer months, we are looking at not doing them in the summer months, especially in July, end of June and July, when a lot of folks are on vacation and people don't look at things as they should. But our semester, as all of you know, will begin in a couple of weeks, but we started last Friday and we'll continue until the end of May, beginning of June. And then we'll retake it again from probably the end of July until the end of the year as well. And then work with the Portuguese elementary and high school teachers on lessons related to the Carnation Revolution. I would love to have Fresno State and PBBI. And we are open to having a Saturday session or a weekday session if the schools allow, and that we could bring half a dozen teachers together and certainly come up with some events that would be and resources that would be useful for the students, obviously, but for the teachers to use with their students, whether it be at Portuguese language courses at high school or our community schools as well. So here is Filamentos, where we will be featuring every single Friday a story about the 25 de Abril. Our theme at Fresno State will be Carnations of Freedom, commemorating the Golden Jubilee of Portugal's 25 de Abril, or the April 25th Revolution. And if we look here, and I'm going to try to see if this will work, where I can share with you the actual live. Here it is, Filamentos. So basically, if you go to Google and put Filamentos Artes e Letras, it will take you to the page. This is what the page looks like. And this is what the article, the very first one that we did. We had done one the week prior, just introducing the concepts and an overview of the 25 de Abril. This one, again, the theme is always Carnations of Freedom, PBBI. Fresno State commemorates the Golden Jubilee of Portugal's revolution. This wonderful story is called The House and the Fort. It's a story for all ages. It's a lovely story with pictures that are related to the revolution and what the story focuses. It was done by Commander Jorge Betancourt. It talks about the Liberator, Carlos the Liberator. Here's a picture of him right now. And this is a picture of Commander Jorge Betancourt, now retired, an April captain. And if you want to use the story, especially teachers, as a narration, it is on our YouTube page. So you can click on that as well. And as you can see, it will pop up. Maybe it won't pop up for me because sometimes things don't pop up, but here it is right here.
The House and the Fort. She witnessed the common criminals building new prison blocks. 3 pavilions, A, B and C, meant for political prisoners. It was true that others had already passed through the fort. Germans and Austrians.
So as you heard there is the story narrated with pictures that can be used for elementary students, for secondary students, for community, for our community in general. So basically, that is what we're going to be doing every single week, every single Friday. It'll be up on Fridays. It'll be available at any time. It's just basically going to filamentusarteseletras.art. Again, filamentusarteseletras.art. If I go to it, hopefully it'll take me to that. This is the page right here. It has this is a literary platform, literary, cultural, and historical platform. So we have it is basically done in both languages. So we have some stories like these top three are in Portuguese. We have some stories in English, including the one I was referring to that was put up on January the 5th. This coming Friday, we'll have another one. And as you can see, we have stories about other events as well. But through this platform, we will be carrying a weekly segment on the 25 de Abril, and that is the Carnation Revolution. So with this, we come upon the end of this presentation. Thanks to all of you who joined us on behalf of PBBI, the Portuguese Beyond Borders Institute from California State University, Fresno. We hope that you join us in our online events. We will have events in person as well. As I said, Commander Jorge Betancourt will be in the Fresno area for about 4 days. And so we are looking forward to having him do an event with our students, the high school students on the 11th. We're hoping to do a community event on the 12th and the 13th. And then, of course, Sunday for him to rest. But then on Monday, he will be speaking to our Portuguese language classes that we have on Mondays and Wednesdays at California State University, Fresno. And then he'll go to Berkeley. This is a joint collaboration between UC Berkeley and California State University, Fresno. And then, of course, we will have other in-person events as well. But most of our events will be digital, so we can reach these Americans, these Californians who live in over 500 cities of our great state that are of Portuguese background and that may want to commemorate also, we hope all of you do, the 25 de Abril and the Carnation Revolution that really changed Portugal forever, and that should have been done many years earlier. Many of us probably wouldn't have immigrated, or our parents, if the revolution had happened in 1964 instead of 1974, because immigration basically ceased from Portugal after the revolution. Not immediately. We still had immigration, obviously, especially from the Azores to California and to the East Coast and to Canada. We had immigration in 75, 76, and 77. But it started to basically decrease significantly after we became an autonomous region in 1976. And even with the earthquake that the Azores had in 1980 in the island of Terceira and also felt in São Jorge and Graciosa, we did not have the exodus of immigration that we had had with the Capelinhos volcano or other disasters that had happened in the Azores, because life had changed already by 1980 in the Azores, and we had an autonomous government that was there besides the folks to help them reconstruct their homes and to help them stay in the islands and continue with their family and their traditions. For some of us, that didn't happen. We had to leave. My family, for example, from my maternal, or I should say my paternal grandmother's side, has been in the Azores since 1598. And right now, we have very few of us who are from that side of the family that began our historical journey in the Azores in 1598. And because of immigration, we have very few of us that are still there from that side of the family and from other sides as well. And so Portugal changed. The immigration from mainland Portugal continued for a few years as well. And then there was some economic crisis that also brought some immigrants from mainland Portugal, especially to the eastern United States, especially to New York and New Jersey and Connecticut throughout some of the 1980s. But basically also even from mainland Portugal or Madeira or the Azores, immigration has been very, very little. And that is because Portugal today has a lot of different opportunities. So totally different country than what it was in the 1960s and 1970s, when lots of folks left Portugal for the United States, for Canada, or Brazil, France, and other European countries because of the dictatorship that we were leaving. So this is basically an outline of what we're going to do at PBBI and what we hope to see with the commemorations statewide. Through PBBI, I can tell you that our resources are limited, and unfortunately financially, but whatever we have, all of the resources, they will always be available to any community organization that wants to partner with us and have a 25 de Abril in an event they are already doing or creating something that's for specifically for the Carnation Revolution. I believe firmly that it is best to do within the events that we already have. Sometimes people in the Portuguese American community complain that there's lots of events and they can't go to everything, and none of us can, obviously. But so it might be a much better aspect of this commemoration to associate the 25 de Abril, the Carnation Revolution, to an event that is already in existence. If that is the case, and if you need our help, we're more than happy to help. On behalf of PBBI, California State University, Fresno, thank you for joining us. We'll be back here tomorrow at 11 o'clock. That is Pacific time. We will be looking at the dynamics of the Azorians and the political system, because the Azores will be going into, it is already in campaign mode, officially not for a few more days, because the campaigns in the Azores are just, or in Portugal, are just a few weeks. But obviously, everybody's already campaigning, just like here in the United States of America. But on February the 4th, there will be elections that are early, a few months early. They should have been in October, but Parliament did not pass a budget, and the governing government parties, political parties, the coalition, along with the opposition, all called for early elections. So they will be on February the 4th. Tomorrow here at 11 o'clock, we're going to talk about the dynamics of the Azorian political system, not from a partisanship preview, but from a historical and a political science aspect. On behalf of PBBI, again, viva o 25 de Abril, as we commemorate the Golden Jubilee of Portugal's Carnation Revolution. Thank you all. Take care. We'll see you next time.